ESPHome just got some major updates a couple of days ago that really helped to streamline and improve the entire process of making your own DIY smart home projects, and makes it even easier than before for anyone to get up and running with ESPHome in just a matter of minutes. And today I'm going to show you just how easy it is. Hey guys, and welcome back to another Tech Tutorial Tuesday. Hope you're all keeping well, enjoying the nice weather like I am, enjoying the start of summer, and hopefully the start of getting back to some normality. ESPHome just got some really cool updates literally a couple of days ago that I am super stoked on, that I personally think make things so much easier and really lowers the bar of getting started with ESPHome, really lowers the barrier of entry to allow more people to get started with it. And so that's what I wanted to show you today, because when I first saw the new installation method, I was actually pretty amazed. It's super cool to see. And so yeah, really excited to see what the guys have been up to over there. So today we're going to go through and I'm going to show you how you can get up and running with ESPHome in a couple of minutes with a very basic config, and then I'll show you how to create your own Wi-Fi temperature sensor using ESPHome. Now, those of you who have been watching this channel for a while are probably thinking, didn't you make this exact video already? And yes I did, but I really wanted to show you the new installation procedure because it's quite a bit different to how it used to be, and also that video was one of my earlier ones, and although it's only like 8 months old, seeing that video is the cringe factor is high. The difference is crazy. Hey guys, welcome back to another Home Assistant guide video. So very quickly, the 30-second version of what ESPHome is. ESPHome is an open source project that allows you to quickly build out custom smart home solutions based on the extremely popular ESP8266 or ESP32 microcontroller without really needing to have any coding experience at all. So you can take hundreds of off-the-shelf components like temperature sensors, LCD displays, pressure sensors, humidity sensors, chuck all those together, and ESPHome will do all of the coding and compiling for you. And the kicker is that everything will be pulled in and integrated with Home Assistant natively. ESPHome started as its own standalone project by Otto Winters, but recently was acquired by Nabukasa, aka the company overseeing the development of Home Assistant, and I think this is a great move as these two projects are now going to be even more tightly meshed together than ever before. So creating your own custom smart home project has never been easier than it is with ESPHome. And you know who else can help you create custom DIY projects? The sponsor of today's video, PCBWay. PCBWay offers a fully featured custom PCB printing service that can help you turn custom projects into a reality with loads of different materials and options to suit your needs. And they offer so much more than just PCB printing service, but everything you need to take your projects from start to finish. From PCB assembly, 3D printing, CNC machining, injection molding, and so much more, all for a highly competitive price. So if you need help creating your next custom electronics project, check out PCBWay using the link in the video description. Now for this video, if you want to follow along, you're going to need access to an ESP8266 or ESP32 board. For this video, I'm going to be using the Wemos D1 Mini, but you can use any ESP8266 or ESP32, such as a Node MCU or something similar. And I'm also going to be using a simple LED and also the Dallas temperature sensor. Now these two components aren't required for this unless you want to build your own temperature sensor, but it's more for the installation process that I want to focus on and show you, and also how to build the config for ESPHome. So yes, I am using a temperature sensor for this example, but that doesn't really matter. What does matter is the concepts I'll show you that you can take and apply to any sensor or device that you want to use in your ESPHome project. Hopefully that makes sense. To check which components are compatible with ESPHome and how to use them specifically, check out the ESPHome website that has a massive long list of all the components supported and all of the parameters that you'll need to get it working, along with everything else that I will show you here. Okay, so the first thing you're going to want to do is to head over and install the ESPHome add-on. Go to Supervisor, then Add-on Store, and find the ESPHome add-on and hit the install button. Once installed, you can check the watchdog option and the show in sidebar option. And for me personally, the ESPHome add-on is safe and stable enough to check the auto update option, but of course the choice is yours. There is no additional configuration required for the ESPHome add-on, so we can hit the start button and then head over to the sidebar and click ESPHome. Alright, so let's just go ahead and get started with our first node. So you'll see here in the main screen, you'll now have your welcome to ESPHome. It doesn't look like you have any nodes. And then you've got the add node button underneath there. And you've also, if you already have some existing config files, you'll see the plus button down in the bottom right hand corner. So let's go ahead and add our first node. So click the add node button and we'll simply give this a name. I would recommend using something that is descriptive for its function. So I'm just going to call this my little ESPHome. Next, under the Wi-Fi credentials, so you're going to go ahead and enter your Wi-Fi SSID and your Wi-Fi password, and I'll show you how to create a secrets file for your Wi-Fi password in just a second. So go ahead and enter that just now, and then we're going to go ahead and click or hit next. And what it's going to do is it's going to come up and say that you need to connect your ESP to your laptop. So this is actually where the new part of the installation starts. So previously, to get the initial flash on there, you would have to connect it to your Home Assistant server first, which isn't always convenient for everybody. But the new process is that you can now literally connect your ESPHome to any laptop or desktop that you are working on. It doesn't need to be your Home Assistant server. And then you can actually upload the code over the browser, which is so powerful, and it's something that I really like, and I think it makes it so much more simpler for new people coming into this. So what I'm going to do is plug in my ESP device over here, and so you can see I have it's a very simple setup. So you'll see in the middle I have my D1 Mini, and then I have a little LED and a temperature sensor over to one side there. What I'm going to do is just going to go ahead and plug the USB cable into my laptop here. And so with that connected, we can now hit the connect button. And what it's going to do is going to pop up this little box in the left hand corner. And you'll see I've got a couple of different serial devices. Chances are you'll probably only have one, and that's going to be this USB to serial. So you want to choose the USB to serial one. And then hit the connect button. And what that's going to do is it's going to connect from your browser to the serial device on your ESP, and it's going to start to install ESPHome onto our ESP device. Alright, so it's just coming to the end of the flash there. And what it's going to do is it's going to then restart the ESP, and that is our firmware now uploaded to the device. So that is our basic config now uploaded to the device, and it's going to take a couple of seconds just to find it and then restart and sort of initialize it. So if we just wait for that to complete. And so on my particular network, it does come up and say that it was unable to detect it. This is because of the way my network is set up. It may work for you, it may work absolutely fine. If it doesn't, I'll show you how to go about that. It's not an issue at all, it's just the way your network is designed. So go ahead and hit the close button, and you'll see that our config is now in the top left hand corner. So we have this this config that we can go in, make changes, upload to our device at any time. So that is really nice and handy. Let's just go over the UI a little bit. So we have the edit button that obviously edits our config. So if we open that, that gives us the config that ESP just uploaded to our device. If we go back, you also have the validate, so that just makes sure that the config is a valid config, you haven't made any mistakes or anything like that. You have the install that will repeat that exact process that we just did. So if you make changes, you'll obviously want to re-upload the code to your device. And then we have logs. The logs button won't work at the moment, just again because of the way my network is set up. And then in the top right hand corner you have the update all and also the secrets editor, and we're going to use this secrets editor in just a second. And of course you have the plus button when you want to add more nodes in the bottom right hand corner. So let's edit our config. Oh, also you'll see this little red bar in the top right hand corner. It's very small, but across our config. So this red bar, that will turn green when it detects that the device is online, and it goes red when it thinks that the device is offline. So mine is currently red at the moment, like I said. And so what we're going to do is we're going to edit the config. And you'll see here the basic structure of how ESPHome works. So at the very top you have a couple of options that tell ESPHome firstly the name of the device that you want. So I would suggest naming this something sensible, sort of like living room temperature or office light, something like that, something that makes sense, because this is how it's going to actually show up in Home Assistant later on also. And this is the name that it'll show up on your router, for example. This is the name that it will use. Underneath that you have the platform, so ESP8266. ESPHome will automatically detect which board is plugged in and adjust this for you. If you want to change it manually, you can obviously change it to ESP32 as well. And then underneath that, we have the exact board. The board isn't automatically detected at the moment, but apparently that is coming in the future. So in a future update, that should hopefully work. So what I'm going to do is, the first thing I need to do is, I'm using a Wemos D1 Mini. So I need to enter D1_Mini. There, if you're using a Node MCU, you can type Node MCU, and you can also type Node MCU V2. Again, check the ESPHome website if you're not sure which of your boards is using. So for my one, I use D1 Mini. Underneath that, there is the logger line, and that basically turns on, remember that log button I showed you in the UI just a second ago? So that enables the logs to come through, and you're able to view the logs or the serial console of your ESP device over the network, which is really useful for debugging. The API is required for using with Home Assistant, so this is how Home Assistant actually communicates with it and talks to it, and how it sort of integrates all of the devices that you build on ESPHome. That's how it integrates with Home Assistant. You can set a password here if you want to. It's totally up to you if you want to set a password here. I'm going to leave it blank for just now, but again, if you wanted to add a password on the next line down, you would just do password blah, something like that, whatever you want your password to be. I'm going to leave mine blank for just now because it doesn't really matter too much. The next one is the OTA. So this is the password that will be required if you want to update the flash over the air, so that anybody can't just upload firmware to your ESP device. You don't want just anybody able to upload firmware, so that's why the password is here. You won't be prompted for it, sorry. If the password is in the config, ESPHome knows how to automatically input the password, so you don't need to worry about what the password is if you only plan to use ESPHome. Underneath that, we have the Wi-Fi settings, so we have the SSID and the password, pretty straightforward. And then we also have the AP settings underneath that. So what the AP settings does is, if you happen to get your Wi-Fi details wrong or your Wi-Fi goes offline, ESPHome on the ESP8266 or ESP32, it will fall back and use it will create its own access point or its own hotspot if your Wi-Fi is unavailable, which is a really useful feature if your device sort of gets lost and you need to get on to update it or to bring it back. So yeah, really useful feature. I would definitely recommend having that or leaving it on. And again, the captive portal at the bottom there, that is related to the fallback hotspot that we just discussed up here in this section. So they sort of work together. So now we have looped. That is a very basic config, and ESPHome does all that for you. It's automatically created that for you, generated it. You don't have to even type any of those lines in, which is a real boost. And so now let's take a look at the secrets file first. So obviously my password for my Wi-Fi is in plain text. If you want to use the secrets file, the same as you do in Home Assistant, you can do that in ESPHome, which is really useful. So what we're going to do is we're going to close that for now, and then head up into the three dots in the top right hand corner and click on the secrets editor. And then it's exactly the same as how the secrets works in Home Assistant. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just say Wi-Fi_password. And then I'm going to enter my Wi-Fi password. So if we enter something like my password, and then hit the save button and close. And then we're going to go and click on the edit button to go back into our config. And then under the password, we're going to get rid of the plain text password in there. And then we simply do the same as you would with Home Assistant. So we type secret and then Wi-Fi_password, using the exact same variable name as you used in the secrets file. And ESPHome will actually confirm that you've got the right secrets, or that at least that the secrets exist. So you'll see if I backspace on password, so it's password, you'll see that this little red cross in the top left hand corner comes up and it says Wi-Fi password is not defined. If we add that D back in, it'll get rid of the exclamation mark. So that's just a little verification so you can see if you actually got these secrets right. So that is now working good. So what we could do is we can save this. and then hit the install button again. And this time it's going to ask if we want to update over the air or if we want to update via the browser. What I'm going to do is just do the browser for this one again. I'm going to select my USB to serial COM6 and hit connect. And again, this is just going to go through, compile the firmware, and then install it to our ESP device. Okay, so now we've installed our base config onto our ESP device. You'll see that the little bar in the top has turned green because my device is now reporting online and DNS is all working and things like that. And we can now use the logs button also. So if you click on logs, this will actually use load the serial logs from the device itself, which is so useful. And this is a real-time log. It'll automatically update and you can go in and use it for debugging. It's super useful and you'll definitely need to use it a lot. So really good feature to have. And you'll see up, it gives us a lot of information about the startup, IP address and sort of host name, SSID. It also gives us the signal strength up here, so I'm quite far away from my router, so my signal strength is yellow at the moment, and all the other sort of useful information you will need. And you also see it's my little ESPHome.local at the bottom, and so that is looking really good. Now let's go ahead and we're going to actually configure our LED and also our temperature sensor on inside of our config. So if we head back over into the config, click on edit, and so you'll see on my device that my LED has turned permanently on at the moment, and that's just because the pins are being pulled high and we haven't actually set up our LED. So let's go ahead and do that now. We're going to go ahead and configure the LED first. Obviously using the LED isn't really useful unless you happen to have an LED in your project. But this simulates how you would do it for if you wanted to flash a light bulb or something like that, anything like that. This kind of simulates it. The size of the LED doesn't really matter. This is the exact same process that I go through when I want to flash an ESP light bulb, for example. So what we're going to do is on a brand new line. So hopefully you're all familiar with how the YAML works, having used Home Assistant. It should sort of be very familiar to you. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to create a domain and also an output. Let's go ahead and create our output first. So on a new line, enter output. On the next line down, we're going to hit enter and then do 2 spaces like we always do for YAML. And then we're going to do a dash and we're going to do platform. So you need to specify which platform our LED is using. And for this, I'm using the GPIO pins on the Wemos D1 Mini. So I just simply type GPIO. On the next line down, we're going to give it an ID. So we're going to call this my little LED. On the next line down underneath that, we're going to do pin. So this is the pin that I'm using for the LED. And this one particular one, I'm using pin D3. You can also use the GPIO number. It's totally up to you. So I'm going to do D3. If you want to use the GPIO pin, so GPIO 14 or 12 or whatever it is, you can just simply type 12, for example. So I'm going to use D3 because that is where my LED is on. On the left hand side also you'll see these little crosses that appear as we go, and these sort of give you hints as to what you've got wrong. So the first one says that I've got upper and lower cases and not underscores, or I'm using spaces. So what I'm going to do is just fix that. We can fix that by using underscores, and that gets rid of that cross. And then on the next one down, it's saying cannot resolve pin D3 for ESP01. And that's because I forgot to save my board type that I changed earlier. So if I go ahead and change this to D1 Mini, you'll see that cross down at the bottom disappears and we are all good. We're good to go. We've got no crosses in there, and ESPHome is happy. If we save this now, it wouldn't actually do anything, and that's because we haven't actually created a domain that we want to integrate into Home Assistant. So next line down, we'll start a new line, a completely fresh line, and we're going to call this light. So you may be familiar with the domains in Home Assistant. So you have, in Home Assistant, you have things like light, switch, binary sensor, all of those different types of entities, and these work the exact same in ESPHome, which makes it really nice and makes the continuity really easy to sort of follow along there. So we're going to create a new line called light, and then underneath we're doing platform again. And this time it's just going to be binary because my LED is just an on or off. It doesn't have dim features. There's no different colors, anything like that. If you had a light bulb that had that was dimmable, you could use the PWM function of your ESP, and that would allow you to dim it. And if it had RGB, you would obviously define all your different RGB. Again, check the ESPHome docs for how to do it. They have actually really nice cookbooks or guides on different bulbs and different devices, things like that, and they give you all the parameters that you need to get you working. Again, these devices aren't important, I'm just sort of showing you how the config actually works. So the platform is going to be binary because it's on or off, 1 or 0, and then underneath that we type output, and so this output that we're going to define here links to the ID of our output up here. So for my output, I'm going to type my _little LED. And then on the next line down, we're just going to give this a name. And this is how this name is what is going to actually be used inside of Home Assistant. So we'll call this, we can use uppercase here now and we don't need to do underscore. So we'll call this my little LED. And so there's no crosses, ESPHome is happy. What we can do is hit the save button, and once that's saved, hit the install button. And again, I'm just going to do it via the browser, or actually let's do it wirelessly. So if I select wirelessly, it's now going to find my ESP device over the network. So it's going to find it over the Wi-Fi, and it's going to actually install the firmware over Wi-Fi, which is pretty cool. You'll see here that the logs are just going through, it's sort of compiling all the code for us. This is actually happening all automatically. We don't have to do anything, no coding, which is really good. And once it's done that, it's then going to upload our code to or install our code, sorry, to our ESP. And so there you go, it's uploaded really fast over the air. And now our ESP is rebooting and we've still got the logs open. And once it's rebooted, the logs will automatically connect for us and it will just start up the exact same as before. Okay, so that is looking really cool. You'll see that it's got a couple of more lines here since we've added our GPIO. So you'll see it says GPIO binary output. It's got the pin in there, etc, etc. It's also got my little LED, which is looking good. But nothing's actually happened because we haven't actually connected it to Home Assistant yet. So we can do that. So go ahead and click stop. Clicking stop on there doesn't actually shut down the ESP devices. It just closes the logs. It's not actually stopping anything. So now if we head back into configuration and then integrations, and you'll see it's already automatically discovered my ESPHome device. So we've got a couple other devices being discovered in there. But you'll see here, it's already automatically picked up my little ESPHome. And so we can just hit the configure button and then click on submit to add our node. And it just automatically pulls it in. We don't need to do anything. You can obviously select an area if you want to, and then click on the finish button. And if we head in and have a look at the device itself, you'll see that it has my little LED. And if I hold up my ESPHome for you, and we'll also trigger the button for you, hopefully that light's not too bright. And so I'm toggling it there and you can see it coming on and toggling our LED. So that is really cool, that is working well. And so that is how to do a super basic ESPHome config. Obviously, you need to tailor it to your needs. Let's go ahead now and add our temperature sensor just as a secondary one so I can give you a better feel for how it works. So head back into ESPHome. On the next line down, we're going to create a new one called... So instead of the output, we're going to create one called Dallas because this is the Dallas temperature sensor, that's what it's called. And basically all you need to supply for the Dallas temperature sensor is the pin, and you can also give it the update interval. So what we're going to do is just going to add to the pin number for now. So my Dallas temperature sensor is on pin D4. And you'll see that the red cross has disappeared. That is literally all we need to do to add, kind of all we need to do. I'll come back in, we'll show you in a second, but if we do that and hit the install button, again, we're just going to do it, let's do it via the browser again. So while that's uploading, obviously, to add a Dallas temperature sensor via manual coding, this would require 100 lines of code in order, and maybe not that many, 50 lines of code, whatever it is, to get the Dallas temperature sensor working and get it outputting how you want it. We literally typed 2 lines there after our base config, and ESPHome does the rest. So you can see just how powerful ESPHome really is. Okay, so our config was installed. Let's take a look at the logs once again. Okay, so in the logs once again, you'll see that we have a couple of new lines that are showing up in blue. So we have our Dallas temperature sensors, and there's also a couple other lines. Obviously it says that we're running on GPIO2, and it also gives us the update interval, which is a default of 60 seconds, and we can change that, and we'll just do that in a second. You'll also see under it says found sensors, and then it gives us our address. So that's how these Dallas temperature sensors work, is that you can have I think it's something like 128 or 256 of these sensors on one single wire, which is really cool. But it's because they have these unique addresses burned into them, is how you can differentiate them on that one wire. So this address we actually need, so we're going to go ahead and copy that, hit stop in the logs, and then head back and edit our config. And so on the next line down, we're going to type sensor. So remember above we had to enter our domain for Home Assistant. So the domain for Home Assistant was light. This time it's sensor, and of course I made a typo because that's how we roll on this channel. So under the sensor we again need to indent, and then we do platform, and of course it's going to be Dallas. Next line down we're going to do address, and then paste in our address, the same one that we just copied from the logs. And we also need to give this a name. So it's going to be, let's call it office temperature. And that is pretty much it. That is our Dallas temperature sensor. So if we save and install again, check the logs. So now our logs have loaded, and you'll see that we now have more lines on the screen. So we have our device office temperature, and we have the unit of measurement, address, resolution, etc. So that is looking really good. And you'll see a line just popped up there down at the bottom saying sending temperature 22.812 blah 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 etc. degrees. And that is our temperature sensor. It's reading my temperature sensor from there, and it's automatically updating the temperature straight to ESPHome. So that is looking really good. The only thing I want to do is to change the update interval to maybe 10 seconds or so. So let's click on the edit button, and then back in our Dallas block under here we can simply add update interval, and we'll do 10 seconds. Click save and install once again, and now you'll see that temperature sensors or temperature values are being sent every 10 seconds in the log down here. So that is looking really good. Our temperature is now firing. We got our LED working, so that is really cool. If we head back over into the configuration and integrations and check on our ESPHome device, so we click into the device and then check on the entities, you'll see that it automatically added our temperature sensor without having to re-add the device, without having to redo anything. It just automatically works, which is really cool. Oh, and also obviously if I hold down or hold onto the temperature sensor like so, you should see our temperature value start to rise. Yeah, so there, up to 28 degrees, and again there up to 30 degrees. So that is working really cool. We've now added 2 devices to our ESPHome. You can see just how quickly it is to build out your sensors and really get started with ESPHome without having to do too much. The new installation procedure makes things really simple. It's really good to being able to do it through the browser. That is a super powerful tool. I absolutely love that, and I think they've done a great job on implementing that. And I really can't wait to see where ESPHome goes in the future. It's an exciting time for ESPHome and of course Home Assistant. There's tons more you can do there. There is a lot of options we didn't cover, some more advanced options of using different templates and things like that. You can also create or install firmware for your devices such as the Sonoff or the Shelly. They both use ESP devices inside of them, and so you can install firmware onto those and really make some super powerful sensors for your house. So it's not just custom DIY sensors, but you can use it on off-the-shelf solutions too. And that's what makes ESPHome and other projects similar to ESPHome so freaking cool. So that's about all the time we have for this video. Hopefully you found it useful. Hopefully it wasn't too long. It seemed not too long. Hopefully it wasn't too long. Hopefully you guys found it useful. If you want to support the channel, you can do so by becoming a Patreon on Patreon, and your support allows me to keep on making these videos. Thank you to all my current Patreon supporters. As always, your support, it's very much appreciated. Make sure to drop this video a like and get subscribed if you aren't already, and I will see you in the next video.